What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 117 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barham, and today's episode is brought to you by Verizon Wireless and Mike Cannella. You can get your cell phone anywhere, so why not support those that support St. John's and Storm Marketing? Visit CanellaEffect.com for more information. And remember, when you talk to Mike, mention Storm Marketing, and the Eye of the Storm podcast referred you as a portion of your sale is contributed back to NIL. That's CANNELLAEFFECT.com. St. John's fans, I am keeping with tradition on this podcast. First, I made sure to bring back the athletic director in a great introductory conversation with Ed Cole. Then I rounded up the Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast guys for the St. John's preview, and now I'm back bringing you the mayor of the Big East for a third year. It's the Big East preview time, so it's only right we welcome back John Fanta. Big East college basketball is just about here. College basketball is a few days away. John, welcome back.
Dave, it's great to be with you. I'm ready for college hoops, man. I'm excited for college basketball. I think we're in for a fascinating season. And in Queens, the buzz is alive. St. John's has not won an NCAA tournament game in a quarter century. I believe that drought ends in 2025.
John, Big East Media Day was last week. As usual, you hosted the show covering the event. It was phenomenal, as always. Until this point, and up until this point, you have made stops at a lot of these schools. You've spoken to most of the coaches, you've spoken to most of the players. But after Media Day and getting to sit down and chat with everybody again, what stood out to you the most? And, now a few days from the season, what are you going into November 4th, November 5th, and November 6th with for the conference after Media Day?
Yeah, I think what I'm going into with is number one, you can't start talking about this conference without talking about UConn and the pursuit to join John Wooden and UCLA for a 3P. And Dave, I don't think it's fake or just a talking point. I think it's real that they can do it. They've earned the benefit of the doubt with how they've constructed their roster, with how they play. But I think it's interesting because they're it's gettable. The Big East is gettable this year. And I say that with the most respect to Tristan Newton and Donovan Clingan. Because for me, Connecticut's going to be relying on Hassan Diarra, who I think is a really talented player. But Tristan Newton was an All-American. Aiden Mahaney, I think it can be really, really special. But a transfer into UConn, it takes time for everybody except Cam Spencer. Even
Hmm.
Newton. You ask people what they thought of Tristan Newton around stores in January 2023, they would have been like, yeah, this hasn't really worked out. Then he won back-to-back titles.
Yep.
It takes time. The other thing is you go from Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan, Samson Johnson, to now Samson Johnson, Terrace Reed. There are questions. Solo ball, I think, is going to be an absolute star. Liam McNeely will be one of the best freshmen in college basketball. Alex Caravan is going to be a star, too. What they do at the 1 and the 5 positions is so key. It's gettable, though. I think Creighton can win the Big East. Why? Stephen Ashworth at point guard, Ryan Kalkbrenner at center, and Pop Isaacs looks like a bucket. And you beat Purdue, who people are still very bullish on, in an exhibition. I think St. John's is capable. You know why? I check off 2 positions when I look at a team. 1, do you have floor generals? And 2, do you have bigs? St. John's has both. If St. John's gets complimentary shooting, they could be a top 15 team in the country. If Sim Wilcher and Brady Dunlap have developed and Davon Smith and Aaron Scott knock down some shots, I think Kadari Richmond's a better shooter than his numbers have shown. He's going to now have life easier because he's not going to have to do everything. And I think he's going to fit in really well. I think St. John's is stacked. I think Xavier's loaded. I think Xavier, Rick Pitino thinks the world of them. I think they're well coached. I think they play hard. I think Ryan Comwell is going to be a star in the Big East. All Big East first team performer when it's all said and done. Yes, I've said it.
No, that's not the last time you heard Ryan Conwell's name on this episode. I'll just preview a little bit of later.
Zach Fremantle, Jerome Hunter, John Hughley comes in from Oklahoma. Don't forget about Marcus Foster from Furman. Xavier cleaned up in the portal. Marquette. What amazes me about Marquette is they go against the grain. They don't take transfers. They don't lose people. They have a perfect situation, Dave, if you're looking for roster retention. Why? They got money. They got a lot more money than they advertise. They
Mm-hmm.
keep their people happy. Cam Jones is going to be happy. Um, what else do I take away? Villanova has to win this year. Butler might be better than we thought. Seton Hall, you can't just count them out. And Georgetown, DePaul are going to be better because they can't be any worse.
John,
Providence, if Bryce Hopkins is healthy, can be a top 25-ish team.
John, how did it feel leaving Big East Media Day, knowing that Rick Pitino, his family, and his former Louisville managers have a group chat basically dedicated to you?
Well, that was not expected. That was the what you're referring to is what he told me is the fight team that basically went to Pacquiao Mayweather in Vegas with a group of people. Some of his family, Vinny, his equipment guy at Louisville. Look, Dave, I did not expect that. That blew me away. I'm honored to be part of the fight team, if you will. If I am a part of it, I don't know, but they're talking about me. So, I think it helps me with Coach, who I love. I think the world of Coach Patino. He's become a friend of mine. We had a couple of wagers, friendly wagers during the Yankees Guardians series. I now owe Coach not one but two dinners.
Ooh.
And he told me that he's not cheap, and Smith and Walensky's is calling our names. So
Ooh.
I owe Coach a couple of steaks.
And I'm sure he's going to collect on that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to collect on that too. He's a competitor. He's wired, and that's the only way that he's wired. And so to be mentioned on the fight team means a lot. That was very entertaining and funny to listen to. But I love, you know, people know where I went to school, my alma mater. I'm very proud as a Seton Hall alum. But St. John's fans know I have a lot of love for St. John's. I think St. John's is a tremendous place that is so vital to both the Big East, Northeast, and metropolitan area, and to college basketball when they're winning. Yeah, I see it in traffic. St. John's fans are crazed. They want to win, and they want to win a lot. Relish this if you're a St. John's fan, because I think that this is a special window, and I think that window's really about to open now. I think you got to peek out the window. Now the window's going to open up this year.
St. John's 20 wins last season, picked 27th in the AP poll this year, picked fifth in the preseason Big East coaches poll. Matt Norlander has them as the 11th best team in his 101 ranking. And you, John, had them just outside the top 25 in your own rankings. We'll get to that in a bit. But, John, it's a talking point this year. Only three teams made the NCAA tournament from last year in the Big East, much to the chagrin of the Big East basketball, St. John's, Providence, and Seton Hall fans everywhere. This year, Torvik rankings will be an official metric on the committee sheet come March, which should make St. John's fans extra angry because guess who was the 12th ranked offense by Torvik at the end of the season and number one after the infamous post Seton Hall loss rant? That's St. John's. But I digress. John, I can't live in the past, so I have to move on. But I will let you put your gambling hat on, as you just talked about wagers, for a second. I'm going to set the number at 5.5, over under amount of Big East teams that hear their name called on Selection Sunday this season.
I'm going to say six teams, with one of them in Dayton. But I really feel confidently in Connecticut, Creighton, Marquette, Xavier, and St. John's. And so I think then there will be a sixth team. I think it's going to be Seton Hall.
Wow.
I think that they're going to surprise people again. I think Sheen Holloway is one of the best coaches in the country. Scotty Middleton, Prince Alipe, Chauncey Jenkins, they got some guys that fit them, Dave. And I think that their non-con schedule is better for them. I thought
Okay.
last year they went out west. It did not go well out west. They went 0 against Iowa and USC. This year they're in Charleston. Their first MTE game is for VCU. VCU is a good team. Seton Hall can beat them. They can. And then they would have Nevada or Vanderbilt. Like, we're not talking about an MTE that's unbelievable. We're talking
Right.
about an MTE that's manageable for Seton Hall.
Okay.
So I think that they could. They have a chance here. I'm just not buying Villanova. I think Butler could be the dark horse, and I like
Hmm.
Providence. I think
So,
Providence
John,
should.
let me ask you if there's a
Providence
bid
should.
thief, if there's a bid thief from the Big East, if we're talking late March and it's Selection
Yeah.
Sunday, a bid thief, would you consider Seton Hall in that realm, or do you actually think that it could be maybe a Butler or somebody else from the Big East?
Yeah, Butler could steal a bid. They could. But if you're really stealing a bid, you're probably winning the conference tournament. I don't know about that. But I've got Providence likely dancing. I think they're a top 35 team or so on their best day. I think that Wesley Cardette, Bensley Joseph, Christ Sandico, who comes in from St. Joe's, looks the part of a big who's going to get it done. As long as he holds up health wise, injuries killed them last year. The injury to Hopkins killed them, and they had other injuries as well. So, yeah, Butler could be. I don't know about Villanova, Dave. I just don't think
Yeah,
they have enough firepower, but I
I
like
agree
people
with you.
like Jameel Telford.
Yeah. Your preseason rankings, you didn't have St. John's in your top 25, but you did have UConn second, Creighton 12, Xavier 18, Marquette 21. I'm curious if you want to change anything now, because those did come out a few weeks ago. Xavier had that big loss of Lucina Traore. That's huge. St. John's went to Piscataway, knocked off number 25, Rutgers. Do you think that St. John still has to prove it? And do you want to shuffle anything in your top 25, specifically Big East wise, now that you've gotten to see a few of these exhibition games kind of take place?
Well, I've moved Illinois out and I've moved Florida in mine. This is just new. I think Elijah Martin's going to be a star for Todd Goldenstein. I think St. John's is 26th or 27th right now. They're right there. They're right there, but I got to see it come together. I think that there's a lot to like about this team. If it serves as motivation to the Red Storm, if that serves as motivation, I mean, come on. But I do think that they're a really good basketball team with a chance to be a top 20 team, a top 15 team if everything goes right. Dave, I need to see them face a marquee opponent and break through, beat them,
Yeah.
show us why. They've got to do some damage in the Bahamas.
Yes, and we will certainly be there for that. St. John's taking on Baylor in that first game in the Bahamas. John, your All America team featured four players from the Big East Conference: Ryan Kalkbrenner on the first team, Alex Caravan on the second team, Cam Jones and Kadari Richmond on the third team. What does it say about this conference and the amount of star power available that four of the 15 spots are allocated to the Big East? And what do we have to look forward to when mid-December arrives for conference round robin play?
Oh, this league's going to be tremendous to watch. And even though last year it only had three teams, the league season's always fun. You get back and forth battles, big games, huge crowds. It's just a show. Every night in the Big East is a show. You feel like you're on Broadway and you're watching the best of the best. What does it show? It shows that we got all Americans in this league. Alex Caravan, they tested the NBA draft waters. Would have been a draft pick, but he got paid a nice boatload and he wants to pursue a three-peat. Ryan Kalkbrenner averaged over 3 blocks per game. Ryan Kalkbrenner's looking to join Patrick Ewing as the only four-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year honoree ever. So Kalkbrenner has a chance to write his name into the history books. I think he's one of the best big men to play in the Big East ever. Yeah, people roll their eyes, they laugh. Why? He's in a Creighton uniform. Put Ryan Kalkbrenner in a St. John's or a Providence or a UConn uniform. We're talking about him all the freaking time. He's absolutely spectacular, Dave. Kadari Richmond, the ball's on a string. St. John's fans, get ready. You've got one of the most dynamic players in the country. This is a player who just makes his teams go. Anytime he steps out on the court, he could have a triple double: 16, 7, and 5 assists per game. Terrific handle, shot maker, playmaker, in the lane, makes things happen. And Cam Jones, gone is Tyler Kolek, gone is Oso Ighodaro. But I think Jones is ready to be the main man. We haven't talked about how much of a bucket he is in his first couple of seasons of college. I think the senior is in for a big year. What does it say? Here's the thing. I didn't even mention Bryce Hopkins, who I think at his best could be an All-American, as long as Jaden Pierre's good at point and Wesley Cardette and Bensley Joseph are doing their thing, Jabri Abdur-Rahim. I think that Xavier could have an All-American if everything goes right for them. Big East has dudes. They've got dudes. They've got a bucket down in D.C. His name's Malik Mack. He averaged 20 a game last year.
Yeah.
The leading returning scorer is from Georgetown. If Georgetown's as bad this year as they were last year, They have the leading returning scorer in the conference and a guy who was an absolute bucket as a freshman in college at an underrated school. Excuse me, playing in an underrated league, the Ivy League. Like the Big East has dudes. Eric Dixon's a dog, Dave. I think that this league is great with star power. That's a really big positive to the Big East.
Hey, if the person who runs the Big East social media is listening, or Val Ackerman, if you're listening, the Big East has dudes sounds like a slogan to me. The theme of this summer, John, and even during the preseason days for the top of the Big East was the amount of top end talent that was lost to the NBA. UConn lost Donovan Clingan, Stephon Castle, Tristan Newton. Creighton lost Baylor Shireman and Trey Alexander. Providence loses Devin Carter and Josh Oduro. Marquette loses Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro. Xavier loses Quincy Olivari. St. John's loses Danis Jenkins. 99.9% of the rankings have these six teams in their top six in some order. Of these six with significant losses, in your opinion, John, who did the best job of replacing what they lost, and who do you think is going to be feeling the losses the most?
I think Marquette feels the losses the most because I just don't think you can duplicate what those couple of guys did for them, right? I think Xavier did a tremendous job filling their roster needs. I really do think that they did a great job portaling Ryan Comwell. I think that Dante Maddox coming over from Toledo is a double figure scorer. I look at their front court and I think that John Hughley was a nice add. Marcus Foster from Furman. To me, Xavier did a great job building. Marquette, you're wondering how they're going to be able to handle it. But St. John's portaled well. They really did. They went onto the portal. They had a mission and they executed it. Villanova lost a lot. Did they fill it really well? I wouldn't say really well. I don't think they did a particularly great job with that. I thought Providence did a very nice job portaling. They set out. Dave, if you remember Providence, they had their roster done in like 2 weeks. They
Mm-hmm.
knew what they wanted. They paid them. They got them. Xavier did an elite job though. That's why they're going to be back. But if I look at it, Marquette, I just you can't lose Tyler Kolek and not bring anybody in.
Nope.
Same with
I
Iguodaro.
get it. I get it. Listen, John, Shaka Smart has been consistent in his talking points. He said it last year at Big East Media Day. He said it this year. I mean, they have a culture in Marquette. They build it a certain way. He believes in building from within. I think it's really tough to do that in this NIL era. It's I understand you keep your guys happy, like you said, and paying them, and Marquette has a boatload of cash. We do know that. But man, is it hard to expect guys like Ben Gold and Stevie Mitchell and a few of these guys to take such a quantum leap? And I've said this on this podcast already this summer, to expect that from them to fill in Tyler Kolek, who's going to be having a role with the Knicks this year, and Oso Ighodaro, who's going to have a role with the Suns this year, to just kind of plug and play. I think that's asking for a lot. John, UConn is the top dog in this conference. When you win back-to-back titles, have one of, if not the best coach in the country and the best staff in the country, you get the benefit of the doubt. We're going to hear that until the cows come home. Uh, Even when you do lose that many starters, if UConn's roster was on another team not named UConn, would they be top three in the AP poll? Probably not. So while UConn is the favorite, and a few pundits have picked Creighton, but for now we're going to go with UConn. Which one or two teams in this conference can unseat UConn if they end up being a bit vulnerable this season and take a slight stumble?
Creighton and Xavier. Creighton and Xavier can both do it. Creighton, because of Kalkbrenner's experience, he makes Creighton elite defensively. They have a game manager in Stephen Ashworth. Pop Isaac's going to play a huge role for this team. He had 24 in the exhibition win over Purdue. And I just like their pieces. I think they're very complimentary. I think they have a nice balance, but they defend. And they've been to 3 of the last 4 Sweet 16s. And oh, by the way, Dave, UConn's never beaten them in Omaha. Creighton has had the upper hand over UConn head to head. They've won the majority of the games. Xavier, because of the amount of depth, and that I like Sean Miller off what their standards are, a bad season.
Yeah,
Xavier hadn't had a losing season since 1996.
wild.
I was a year old. when Xavier last had a losing season. Not even a year old. That was like 8 months old. So to me, I think it's Creighton or Xavier. If I added a third team, I would put St. John's over Marquette because I think St. John's you could argue they have the most upside in the conference in terms of if this guy delivers, if that guy delivers. Next to UConn. I'll still give UConn the most upside, but St. John's is second in terms of the upside column. We just have to see it.
Yeah.
When you portal, you have to see how all the pieces mesh. Kind of like last year. Last year we said this team's going to be great. They're going to be unstoppable. Da 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 da. Dave, then we figured out like, hey, you have to see how the pieces actually connect.
Right.
Will this team connect? I think they've got the guys to do it. They just got to make it happen.
John, we're talking about storylines for the conference. One of the other ones is the bottom of the league. You touched on it at the beginning, but mainly this is because of a fully revamped roster for DePaul with Chris Holtman, Malik Mack. You've mentioned him coming to Georgetown. They've added a few pieces like Thomas Sorber, a freshman who they expect big things from, and of course, getting Jaden Epps back. In my opinion, the bottom of the conference is something like not in any order, but Butler, Seton Hall, DePaul, Georgetown, and we've started to talk about Villanova. So I'm not sure if Villanova should be in the middle or if they should be kind of paired with those guys. Um, but given that Georgetown and DePaul should be better, are they going to do enough, especially the non-conference portion of this schedule, to help the conference? And is the conference overall better, even though it's not so top heavy, but the bottom just isn't that bad anymore?
Yes, Chris Holtman was the first competent hire DePaul has made in years. Now he makes them a competent team that plays organized basketball. And I know it's a tough starting spot when that's your starting spot. But let's face it, Dave, they've been a bit of an embarrassment. David Skogman coming in from Davidson could be a double-figure guy. Could be a legit postman in the conference. Leighton Blocker coming in from Arkansas. I've heard really good things about. I've heard good things about NJ Benson off the bench for this team. I think Connor Emright knows how to run an offense, knows what he needs to do to make the team tick, if you will. I think they've got some nice pieces and parts. Isaiah Rivera comes in from UIC, average close to 16 points per game. They actually have depth. They got to stay healthy. They had a couple injuries for their exhibition this past weekend, but they do have some depth. Worry a little bit about their size, but they're going to be able to make threes. Georgetown. Georgetown, I just worry about their youth. Still over half the roster is underclassmen. You're going to be able to pay these kids, but have they learned? Last year, Drew Fielder looked like he got overwhelmed at times. Thomas Sorber, five-star freshman. How do you keep his confidence in a good place, Dave? I think he could be a stud, but it's going to be tough to just come in and deliver. Malik Mack, Jaden Epps, Micah Peavy. On their best day, wow. Oh, that's a really interesting team. And look out for Curtis Williams Jr. transferring from Louisville. I've heard really good things about Curtis. I think he could be a gem in the Big East. But you look at Georgetown's schedule. Lehigh and Fairfield should start 2-0. Man, Dave, do they have a massive game November 16th at home against Notre Dame? Massive. Because if you win that, Mount St. Mary's, St. Francis, Wagner, Albany, UMBC, you could go into the West Virginia game 8-0. Frankly, you should. 8-0 gets us at least talking a little bit about the Georgetown Hoyas. Hey,
Sure.
maybe they're back on the map. Maybe they've got something here. You gotta put it together. That game against Notre Dame, Dave, is a mammoth game for the Georgetown Hoyas. As for DePaul, they start similarly. Like last year, Georgetown lost to Holy Cross. DePaul lost a bunch of bye games. That's got to be different here this season. DePaul opens up with Southern Indiana, then Prairie View A&M, then Mercer, then Duquesne, then Eastern Illinois, Northern Illinois, Valpo. I mean, Chris Holtman's team should be 7-0 right off the jump. Time to get there.
Yeah.
Time to not lose the bye games. Time to install a winning climate.
We started talking about a few of these players, and I want to give fans a few to just earmark, keep in your back pocket. So, John, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 guys that I think say not St. John's fans who are the key demographic here, but Big East fans should kind of keep in mind. And we talked about Ryan Conwell. A lot of people are going to talk about Fremantle and Hunter being back for Xavier. Obviously, McKnight leading the way as well, but Ryan Conwell seems to be the guy for Xavier. But if that's too mainstream for everybody, I'll give a few more. Jacob Meyer from DePaul. This kid's a shooter. This kid can fill it up. He had a really good game in their last exhibition game. I think this kid is a big time bucket. So DePaul might have something there. I know St. John's actually looked at him, and Rick Pitino did. He's a Kentucky kid. Jabari Abdul Rahim from Providence. Everybody's talking about Hopkins coming off the injury. Everybody's talking about Wesley Cardette. I like Abdul Rahim's game a lot. I would not be surprised if he is the Batman to Hopkins' Robin or vice versa. Jameer Brickus, I know we're talking about Villanova kind of having a down year, and everybody's talking about Eric Dixon, but this kid can really play as a true point guard. Probably the first true point guard Villanova has had in quite a while. That's something that they struggled with big time last year with Mark Armstrong. So, John, I'm curious, who are just a few guys that fans should keep in the back of their pockets, in the back of their minds, who are not some of the obvious guys?
Yeah, the guys you just listed are interesting. I think that Scotty Middleton at Seton Hall is going to have a big season. I think he can become a star. I think when you go along the lines with Creighton, look out for the name Jemiah Neal, transferring from Arizona State. I would expect him to play some sort of a role for his team. Butler, when you look at Butler, they brought in Patrick McCaffrey from Iowa, a guy who's been a part of enough winning experience,
Mhm.
versatile, will provide length at the four slot, potentially some shot making. He's a guy who battled some mental health earlier in his career. I'm really happy for Patrick that he was able to get through that, and we wish him the best as he finishes out his basketball career. But with Jameel Telford and Pierre Brooks Day playing some bully ball, McCaffrey should play a vital role for this Butler team. Providence, Wesley Cardette from Chicago State, Bensley Joseph from Miami, prepared to be big time players, I think, prepared to be vital to the whole equation. So there's just a couple, with Villanova, Enoch Boakye, who transfers in from Fresno State, like, you got size. And talking with Villanova people, they're like, the challenge with Enoch is going to be making sure he avoids foul trouble. But
Mhm.
he's going to be out there, Dave. He's 6'11, 255. He's length, and he's going to help them. And to what degree he helps them remains to be seen. But I think Bulke playing next to Eric Dixon, maybe playing Dixon space the floor with him, have an extra big in there, could give Villanova a bit of a different dimension. Villanova's problem hasn't been defense. It's been having enough sources of scoring.
Mhm. Yep. John, I'm going to bookend this conversation, of course. Well, we got to talk St. John's, and that's how we're going to close this out. The conversation around St. John's, no doubtably, this summer has been about Kadari Richmond and Davon Smith. And now that the exhibition games are done, I think things are very clear. Their first is real expectations in Queens. There always is, especially to the fans, because we're crazy and delusional. But I think nationally, there are real expectations in Queens. And I think the floor, I believe rightfully so, is not just to make the tournament, but actually win in the tournament. And the second thing is while Richmond and Smith were the prize acquisitions of this offseason, we know what we're getting with them, I believe. Elite backcourt play, a very yin to yang style. In my opinion, this team goes as far as Zuby Ejiofor, RJ Lewis, Aaron Scott, and Simeon Wilcher will take them this season.
Well, I think that opinion is very valid. I go with they'll go as far as Kadari Richmond takes them because when Richmond is on, everybody else is on, and Richmond can go through some cold spells. But when he's consistent, wow, is he a special player? He is the motor. Now you could say the what ifs of the equation are what we see from the other players. Can the Sim Wilcher make the jump? Not just a one-off scoring performance, but be that guy that averages 12 a game and fits in the equation well? Can Brady Dunlap show progress and make shots? They went 5 for 22 from three against Towson. They went 5 for 22 from three against Towson. Against Rutgers, they went 7 for 21. So Big East teams are going to say, we'll dare them to shoot. We will dare them to shoot. If they make those shots, Dave, they're going to be a really dangerous team. Zuby's prepped for a big year.
Mm-hmm.
Kadari Richmond and Davon Smith look the part of guys that can create, handle, do a lot of different things for a team. You gotta have shot makers. If this team gets 3-point shooting and RJ Luis stays healthy, there's nothing the Red Storm can't do.
John, finally, last season, you did a multi-part series with Rick Pitino called The Pitino Chronicles. We all watched it. Part of Coach Pitino's story is the year two success everywhere that he has been. Since before he coached Providence, the first time that he has gone to the NCAA tournament, as long as his team has been eligible, has always been by year two. Providence went to the Final Four. Kentucky, the first year eligible, which was year three, went to the Elite Eight. Next year, he went to the Final Four. Louisville, he went to the round of 32. Iona in year one went to the tournament. First year at St. John's, he wins 20 games, just narrowly missed the NCAA tournament. So, John, what is the ceiling for St. John's this year? How do you see Rick Pitino's year two tenure going? And what do the St. John's diehards have in store this year?
I think that St. John's finishes in the top four in the Big East. They win 25 games and they make the Sweet 16. I think that they win two tournament games and make the Sweet 16, which for this program would be a massive leap. But I am
Absolutely.
buying the year two jump. I'm buying the year two jump. I'm buying that this team pieces it together. And I think that the Red Storm will be back on semifinal Friday at the Garden. Depends on the draw of what they'll get. But this is going to be a special season, I feel, for St. John's. And I think the key for them is simple. Again, perimeter shooting. I think you'd really like to get two games in the Bahamas if you could. You don't want to lose to Georgia. You'd like to get one in that MTE. And if they do that, I like their chances against Kansas State. I really do. And I think that this team's going to have an opportunity to do some special things if they can piece it all together. And I think that they will. I think for them, early conference, they have a real chance to start 1-0 with DePaul. Then you go to Providence, the students will be off campus. Going to Creighton is hard. Then you host Butler, but you should be in a position where you can be 4-2 through six, if not, definitely 4-3 through seven conference games, then going to Seton Hall January 18th, which is a game we all have circled on the calendar.
Absolutely. John Fanta, thank you so much for doing this again with me. I really appreciate it. It's the most busiest time of the year for you, and taking a few minutes is greatly appreciated. Big East basketball in general was right here. We could taste it a few days away. He's John Fanta. Make sure you're following, reading, watching. We'll see you everywhere, and I appreciate you taking some time with us, John.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you, man.
Johnny Nation, thank you for listening. We'll catch you as the season is almost here. November 4th, St. John's, Fordham, almost here. Johnny Nation, thank you for listening. Catch you next time.